What's up, everybody? Back today to talk about Green Room, the newest film from Jeremy Saulnier. And you know, he did Blue Ruin that came out a couple years ago, and that film was really well done itself, and so is Green Room. It's not 100% a horror movie, it's like a survival type horror film, but there is some gore, and what I loved about the gore in this film is it's not gratuitous, it's just to show that the guys they're messing with are violent. But let's get into the plot a little bit. First of all, it's this punk band. The main character is Anton Yelkin. I think he plays bass, and you know, his band, they're on tour, and they're really siphoning gas from people so they could tour around with their band, and they're all like really underground. They don't have a Facebook presence or something like that, and it kind of shows them going through the routine, and then they get booked at the show at this Nazi compound that's overseen basically by Patrick Stewart, and some crap goes down in the green room after they play their set, and from there, they're stuck in the green room on this Nazi compound. It was going to be a little bit more of a chase film myself, or, you know, maybe chasing them through the woods or different parts of the compound, but it mostly takes place in the place where the show's at with the green room. So that was something I was caught off guard with, and it was done pretty well. The whole film overall is done pretty well. Let's get into the good and the bad parts. Basically, it's a straight up, you know, very basic plot. They see something happen in the green room. The skinheads want to silence them from talking, and they have to fight their way out through these very violent neo-Nazi guys that are run by, you know, puppet master Patrick Stewart. And Patrick Stewart is great in this movie. He plays like this evil father figure, and not only sort of like a father figure to the skinhead guys, because the film kind of is almost more about the skinheads than I thought about the band, which maybe that's just the viewpoint I was taking, but we got to know a lot about the skinheads, and he's like their evil father figure, and he kind of also calms down Anton Yelkin at one point where he's like kind of negotiating with him, and he just plays this very subtle, evil type guy, and just really well done by Patrick Stewart. Knocked it out of the park. Definitely added a lot to the film. And the whole film really is about, I thought when I left the theater, about the loyalty behind everything. And I was like, it's kind of a coming-of-age film that's very, you know, violent, of course. And it's also sort of a film about loyalty. You can see the last scene with the dog. They have these, like, fighting dogs. And it's not a spoiler or anything, but the very last scene with the dog, the film is clearly about loyalty. And then at the end with Patrick Stewart, what happens, you know, of course, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's just a very loyal type of reaction all these skinheads had for, you know, Patrick Stewart, and then, you know, the band's very loyal to their music and to each other. They're kind of like the Scooby Gang, and all that worked very well. And, you know, I think it's a good movie for people that kind of like punk rock music because it felt very authentic. And one of the things is a guy who, you know, maybe if you're all into hip-hop, you don't really follow the underground punk type stuff or whatever, when you watch this film, it's going to be a great insight into something that you've never seen before. So I thought it worked on both those levels for the people that are familiar with it and the people that are, you know, not familiar with it. It's going to be entertaining because it's just a basic story set against this cool backdrop of this punk club. And like I said, the director did a really good job of setting up both sides of the, not really argument, because, you know, it's clear that the skinheads are wrong, they're neo-Nazis and all that, but a lot of the movie is about them. The main subplot, which I'll get to in a minute, is really about the Nazis, and, you know, the kids in the band are just really a catalyst. All we know about the band is that they're a band and they're pretty freaking tight because they, you know, basically live in a van, and they're pretty hardcore to their punk rock values, I would say that. But then we learn a lot about the different skinheads, and it's kind of weird. I don't know, there's this one scene where Patrick Stewart gives kind of one of the skinheads some red shoelaces, and as you watch the film you understand, but it's like one of those weird scenes. It's kind of like a sensei giving, like, you know, the belt to the student or something. It's just weird. I don't know. You kind of feel for both sides, even though the Nazis are clearly the bad guys. So I think it worked on that level too. The bad part is the subplot, definitely. Let me get into that for a second. I just thought the subplot was very convenient, and I don't know, it's just like, why not leave before the concert, or, you know, why not kill the kids right away instead of trying to lead them on? I understand why they were trying to lead the kids on at the beginning, because the skinheads wanted to make sure it ended the way they wanted it to end. But at the same time, it's like, just get it done already. And that's kind of like how the movie portrayed it, was that the skinheads were just as much screw-ups as the punk band, basically. So, you know, they were psycho killers, but they weren't like, you know, assassin-level killers. They were just still capable of getting duped, obviously. You know, it would be a sucky movie if they just killed the kids right away. So there's some definitely good combat, violence and stuff like that in there. The attack dogs and the machetes. There's violence, but it's not, like I said, gratuitous, which I kind of liked. I appreciated it for the way they did it. It's very straightforward. They show what happens, but it's not really glorified at all. I mean, you know, I'm used to watching movies where they glorify it. My final score for The Green Room is going to be a 4 out of 5. Like I said, I felt lucky to see this many good movies in the theater this year. The film looks good. It's well acted. It's well written. Except for the little subplot that made everything so freaking convenient. And, you know, the whole thing with how they were going to explain this to the cops exactly, I was kind of like, how is Patrick Stewart going to explain this off to the cops? That's the thing I kept wondering. I was like, he's really grasping at straws here. Just end it, you know, take out the kids, stop trying to create this big narrative. But he had to, I guess, because he wanted to keep the compound going and the movement or whatever. So yeah, 4 out of 5. Interesting movie. If you're not into punk rock, it's kind of a look into something that's, you know, you're probably not going to see every day. And I thought that was kind of cool. And there's definitely that neo-Nazi side of, you know, punk rock. You know, even though it's usually the small minority, this one focuses on the, you know, them being the majority and being stuck there. I do recommend The Green Room. If I would have rented it, I know nothing about punk rock, I would have liked it. So tell me what you thought of Green Room down below. Did you think it was violent enough, or are they making too big of a deal about the violence? I didn't think it was that violent. I thought it was well done. So tell me what you thought down below, and I'll see you guys soon with another movie.